And it looks like we're live.
Great.
Good afternoon, Vicki. How are you?
Hi there. I'm good. How are you today?
Another crazy day.
It is, yes, crazier than anyone could probably even imagine for people in our roles right now.
Exactly. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of things to talk about today, so I am going to jump in and hope folks will ask questions as we go. And happy to answer all the questions that are out there. So first thing is the Paycheck Protection Program and how interesting that has been. So it officially opened on Friday. All of the banks and payroll companies were essentially using incorrect calculations. All the accountants were up in arms. And over the weekend, the Treasury clarified what the calculations should be. So what the two big contention points were: what period of time are we using? Is it the last 12 months or 2019? As well as, is it gross payroll or net payroll? So by the time we got to Monday, when the majority of banks actually opened, everyone was kind of on the same page with what those calculations should be. There were some laggers with payroll companies and how they were doing the calculation, but for the most part, everyone was starting to follow the same process. So what I've heard is, if someone applied on Friday with the net payroll calculation and the loan was already approved, you're kind of stuck with that number. If it's in process and your accountant or yourself used net payroll and it hasn't been approved yet, that have a conversation with your banking contact to potentially give you the opportunity to update those numbers, because it does make somewhat of a significant difference if you're using gross or net. But to the point that I've never seen things changing so quickly and there being so much confusion. It's actually to a point where if I see something that they're saying is concerning to me, like it doesn't quite make sense, instead of getting concerned, I put it to the side and I make sure I see stuff out there in the news that people are, in an uproar, and I know it's going to be taken care of. So really, when does that ever happen? It really doesn't.
Never. I mean, just in this situation. But I'm really glad, because with all of our clients, we took the food fight approach, throw everything up against the wall and see what stuck. So we went right away with gross payroll. But what I will tell you is, I had a conversation with our guest that's going to be coming on Thursday on the insurance side. She was in a call with one of her groups yesterday, and they were talking about that you could add, and I was going to ask you this if you had heard anything, that you could add the insurance premium, not the workman's comp, but your general liability insurance premium into the PPP calculation if your insurance premium was determined by payroll. And I haven't seen that anywhere.
I have not seen that anywhere, and that sounds like wishful thinking by insurance people. Sorry if anybody, but I really have not seen, even alluding to that, anything about that at all. So, and again, it's premiums for health insurance, because that's part of keeping people employed and part of the benefits. But there's nothing else related to,
I mean, unemployment is included. Workman's comp, is that included as well? Workers'
comp is not included. So
that, again, this is a franchisor that's disseminating information to their franchisees in a group that may or may not be accurate. And that's why we got our PPP expert, guru, whatever you want to call yourself, Vicki, that's on this 24/7. I mean, it's just like, you have to be, really. You've really got to be on 24/7.
With everything with PPP, I mean, there's the stuff coming down from the Treasury, and there's interpretation of that. And then there's a lot of organizations, especially I'm a CPA, so I follow CPA organizations that are working in conjunction with the government, where they actually, like, when they recommend something, the government listens, and then you see it, by the next day getting passed down. And then there's the people pointing out, whether it's tax experts, attorneys, other CPAs, things that they're saying that doesn't make sense and would negatively harm a small business if you don't incorporate it. And in all of that, so I always am taking all of that into consideration to know what's coming, what might be changing in this. And I have not seen anything like that.
I didn't think so, because you and I have talks about this literally every day as we're going through the process, and you're, informing our team internally what can be done and what can't be. I mean, even to the point where, I mean, it's just, there's so much information and there's a lot of misinformation that we're really lucky that we've got you who understand it. Our clients, our members are getting good information that's been vetted, because you're making sure that you're not putting anything out there. We're not, Results CFO is not putting anything out there that you haven't gone through and checked and double checked and triple checked. So I thank you from Results CFO and our clients and from the group, but I'm really happy that we have you doing this. I mean, it's just unbelievable the amount of time that it takes just to stay up on this. And now our clients and our group members don't have to worry about staying up on it, because they got you, and we're doing these twice a week, and they can post and ask questions, and we're there for them. So,
but what's been actually interesting is the questions that we're getting, right? Even on some of the presentations that we've done, is actually helping me then say, okay, this person asked this question. They have an intricate business model, 2 or 3 businesses, and a lot of this, and it makes me then dig in deeper and look at it in a different way, because what's being passed down is very high level conceptually. They're not thinking through, exactly how the pass-through entities work. And if someone has 3 businesses, how does that all interact when it's all self-employment income? And there's a lot of specifics that are going to keep getting fleshed out. I'm certain of that, but have not been completely thought through just yet. So it's an interesting
Don't worry
process.
about it after they open up the independent contractors and all these questions, and then they'll worry about it next week.
And there's even stuff with the forgiveness part, where there's some issues with how they want to do the calculation for the forgiveness, which is actually a little bit different than the determining the loan. And they are actually saying, we will worry about that later. And that's coming. We will work on that later. We have to just get these loans processed. So again,
stay tuned.
Stay tuned
from now.
We'll
be doing
from the government,
updating us all.
Yeah. So when we say we don't know something, I was on the phone with somebody yesterday, and it was like, I just don't know. It doesn't mean that it's not, we're never going to know. It's just that I'm not going to say something that I'm not 100% sure of and have actually heard it come down from the government. So, okay, so PPP. So a couple of other just, things that have been out there, kind of newsreel things, just some hot topics. So, it's being questioned whether banks are prioritizing loans. So, we're hearing that larger loans are actually being approved, right? But where it's payroll, that is, obviously this is for companies 500 or less. So a company with 400 employees is a pretty sizable business, and has a very large payroll. So what we're hearing is that a lot of these larger loans are being funded first, but not that it's to be that way. It's supposed to be first come, first serve, and kind of order that the applications come in. But the rumor is that banks are purposefully prioritizing the large loans because there's more in it for them. So, nothing that really can be done. Hope the people are complaining about it to the government. So hopefully some direction will come down on the banks that they're not supposed to be doing that.
A couple clients that are the 100 employee plus level, and it hasn't gotten down to them yet. We're, we're in touch with the bank every single day from Friday on, even over the weekend, to see where this is through the pipeline. And it's just basically, we haven't heard. Or SBA's verifying FIN numbers to make sure that the FIN isn't applying with 2 different banks for the same loan. So that's slowing things down as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, and, so I think that banks probably are looking at larger loans first, but then it's also, the capacity of the bank to even do the paperwork,
Exactly.
So it just depends. There's a lot of variables here. So it's hard to say exactly when something's going to, get through.
But on a positive note, real quick, on a positive
Yeah.
note, I think I told you this, but in case I didn't, on a more positive note, we're aware that one $538,000 PPP loan was funded yesterday that was applied for on Friday.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, it was, when we heard that, we were made aware of that. We were just like all jumping for joy. Okay, this, the dam's opening and the funds are going to come rolling in. But we still haven't seen any EIDL that for anybody, or even some of our clients in Maryland. We've heard that they've been approved, but no money's transferred into their accounts yet from the grants or the loans. So it's all just, we're still on a wait and see attitude.
And that the EIDL specifically, I mean, the advance or portion, the 10,000 that would be turned into become a grant or is a grant. They were saying 3 days, and I don't know anyone that has actually received that money. So for PPP, like you're saying, we already know of a client that has the funds already. Okay, so that's great news. A little on the larger side of the loan. They're saying 2 to 3, from when the loan gets approved, I'm hearing 2 to 3 weeks. So I think it can be a matter of days, and it can be, a week or two. So hopefully they will keep working on speeding this up. But just so that everyone, stays kind of looking at it as, don't expect it tomorrow. If it comes, that's wonderful, but your planning needs to be that it really could take potentially a month to get it, to get it all processed, approved, and funded. So if you're depending on it that you can't, get by next week, if you don't have this, you need an alternative plan.
Absolutely,
just to be realistic.
It's better to be safe than sorry in this one.
Exactly. So a couple other things that we're hearing about, Wells Fargo, we posted it on our group, but just to bring up that, they shut down their funding after they hit 10 million in loans. 10 billion. Okay. We don't know yet if other banks kind of have this criteria out there where they're putting a cap, because they're looking at it as their own liability, which they really shouldn't be. But we don't know. But it was interesting that kind of happened pretty quickly. Some state funding is starting to shut down. So Maryland shut down their grant program. So, again, there's funding allocated and it's getting used up. So we got, everyone's got to kind of keep up on it on a daily basis because things really are changing that quickly.
On that note, just so we're going to try to keep up with it daily and post on the site. But if you all, as part of the group, hear something shut down or a bank shut down, please, this group is for all of us, and we don't all have a we're not the only ones, meaning Vicki and I and Result CFO are not the only ones that have access to information. Please share that information and we'll verify it. But if we know that a bank over here in Texas has shut down, we want to post it because we don't know where everybody is or where they're banking. I mean, and along with the Maryland, it's not just the grant, it's the $50,000 loan that was also shut down. The only thing that's open in Maryland is the manufacturing renovation or remodel loan of up to $100,000. And we also know that another bank, a small local community bank in Maryland, shut down in less than 12 hours. They basically said, no more, we're done.
Right. So, we know that self-employed and past their income, and those folks can't apply till Friday, and hopefully they're putting funds aside for that. We think there's going to be more funding in a CARES too, but we don't know for sure. But the main point here is, like, if you're sitting on your application or you're, moving slowly for whatever other reasons, time is of the essence to get this done, because we are starting to see things close down. So not to concern people,
one of the other questions that I've been getting a lot of are people that have outstanding taxes, whether they're payroll taxes or income taxes or sales taxes. they're asking, should we apply? Well, my feeling is, and the advice that I've been giving is, go ahead and apply so that at least you get the application in. We don't know how it's going to be viewed, but the worst that they can say is no, which would have been the same thing if you didn't apply. So it's better to put in and let them come back, but we don't know how that is going to be viewed.
Yeah, but we got to take the step back that the purpose of this isn't to give a loan to the employer necessarily for paycheck protection. It's to keep people employed. So based on why they're doing this program, I would say they most likely will still fund it, even though there's, now of course we don't know, so we have to give our clients that advice, but in the heart of what this is for, it would make sense that they would still do, you know, give the funding. So,
right.
I agree with you. You got to try.
Right. And not just the PPP, even the EIDL. If you're going to go with the EIDL, chances are they're not, or they're going to take some of it. If you owe, you know, $500 in taxes and they're going to give you $1,000, they'll pay the $500 in taxes potentially and give you a net amount. But again, we don't know, but it's better to get the application in to quote unquote reserve your spot than not get it in and wait for some kind of guidance, because then you may lose that spot. There may never be a spot available again.
Right, so, exactly. So, you know, we were kind of talking about some of the negatives with banks that are shutting down. So we know that that's, you know, kind of a couple banks exiting this PPP process right now. But on the positive side, there's some what we call finance technology companies, fintechs, that are entering the game. So we know Cabbage is starting to do PPP loans. So if you can't get it from your bank, that is an option. We posted on the group also Intuit Payroll Services is going to start processing. And there's several others that are coming. So Gusto is a payroll service, hasn't been approved yet, but they're looking to get approval and they're working with the government on that. Even other payment platforms like Stripe, they're looking at the possibility. Again, it totally makes sense. They're already connected to the business's bank accounts. You know, payroll services are already connected to the government accounts. Completely makes sense. The timing is somewhat unknown. Cabbage is happening already. QuickBooks Online payroll is starting today. And then I would think that the others are going to come within the next week. I know that they're all working feverishly to get in on this. So that'll be, you know, that'll be a big help for folks that, you know, have a problem on the bank side. Now, also in this fintech world, right, we have these kind of startup technology-based lenders that link right into your, you know, your QuickBooks or your GL account, and they give loans or even accounts receivable kind of funding based on your AR. They will give you a line of credit. So Cabbage is the first now that has pulled out. They are closing down lines of credit for new and existing customers, which we posted about the other day. But what I'm seeing or hearing is that there is going to be more of that. So Fundbox, On Deck, those are all companies just like Cabbage that are, you know, they're already funding high-risk loans, very high interest rates, right? They make their money by companies or businesses that cannot get funding elsewhere, and they charge them exorbitant interest rates. So in the same way of what Cabbage is saying is, you know, suddenly none of our customers can pay, so we have to pull back the funds. So just, you know, for businesses that are using these services, that are dependent on these services, be paying attention, have conversations if you need to, but be paying attention to what's going on there, because that would kind of be the first step in some credit potentially shutting down. So when I saw that, I was a little concerned.
Foundation's another one.
Foundation, yep. So again, I haven't heard, I've just heard these names thrown out as, you know, comparable to Cabbage, but it's definitely something. I know a lot of businesses that are very dependent on these companies, so you need to be cognizant of that.
And we'll keep updating the site, and forgive us if there's redundancy, but it's always better to throw it out a couple times so everybody sees it. So we will, as we hear, we'll put it up. As you all hear, please post.
Then, although, so we said self-employed individuals, Schedule Cs, K1s, those with pass-through income, there's nothing in this current wave of PPP loan applications and calculations that cares for that. That is supposed to be rolled, the PPP is supposed to be rolled out to these folks on Friday. They have still not provided guidance on what they're going to look for. But what we're hearing, and I think I've said this before, but it's still the case, they are going to want 1099s for all independent contractor income, as well as a 2019 tax return that's going to show the Schedule C and or the K1. Okay, so if you have not filed your tax return yet, and you were going to go on extension until the fall, and you don't have all of your numbers together, that is what you should be working on this week to at least get a P&L for 2019. So even if you don't have the tax return, it's all that supporting document, all the supporting documents that you would be giving to your tax person. That is what you should be working on this week to make sure you have it ready to go. And then for business owners, the compensation that PPP is going to fund for is up to $100,000. So we're waiting for a little bit of guidance. I don't know if we're going to get it for folks that have more than one business and cumulatively are making more than $100,000 and what that calculation would be. But in theory, I believe, and this is just my interpretation, that there will be some sort of a reconciliation that will need to be done so that you're not showing compensation on every entity for the owner of has 100,000. So just something to be thinking about. I am very much looking into that specific question, but it's something that does need to be resolved because we definitely have a lot of folks in this group that that meet that criteria, that have more than one entity. Right. That they would be wanting to apply for.
And if they've got 4 and they've got more than 100,000 in each, the question is it going to be capped for them individually as a person at 100, or will each? I guarantee that if they don't have FINs or federal employer identification numbers for each one of the entities, it's going to be capped at 100 for those entities that don't have a FIN. Now the question is, and that we're going to be we're going to be constantly on the lookout for, are those businesses or those individuals that have multiple companies with multiple FINs that are all pass-throughs? Are they going to, even if they're Schedule Cs or K1s, are they going to give it 100,000 for each FIN, or a total of 100,000 based on the Social Security number of the person? So those are things that Vicki and her team are going to be constantly looking for, especially as we move into this independent contractor status. Now, you also saw some things with regard to passive income that is not that is very interesting that you want to make everybody aware of. So why don't you jump into that as well?
Yeah. So, and again, this is one of the things that's kind of being shouted from the rooftop. So I'm hoping that something more advice will come, more guidance, and probably even another bill, because it's not in the first PPP or CARES Act, but caring for passive income and landlords specifically. So if a landlord essentially, although the government is not looking at it, even though if you have a management company and you have employees working, for your company who is a landlord, they are not qualified to apply for PPP as it stands today. So there's several, and I'm actually going to post an article to the group. There's several scenarios of what they are looking at as real estate businesses that are not eligible to participate. So, I know we have agents here, 1099 contractors, absolutely. We have brokers in this group, that is absolutely a business. But where we're looking at, buildings that are renting out to other businesses, those are not being cared for in this act. So really landlords are hurting massively right now. And hopefully they're going to come with something that's relief for landlords, because I already know that's the first place that businesses are looking to not pay.
Right.
is their rent, because that is typically a very large expense. So so it's at the list of passive businesses. There's several passive businesses owned by developers and landlords that do not actively use or occupy the asset, right? They're renting it to somebody else. Businesses engaged in subdividing real property into lots and developing those. Businesses that are primarily engaged in owning or purchasing real estate and leasing it out for other purposes, right? So they're not the ones in the building, they're leasing it to others, is not included or not eligible for PPP.
Along those lines, is there any percentage of, in other words, is it, if the landlord, does the landlord have to, or the owner of the building have to be occupying 51% or more? Or it just says, if you're renting out 1% of it, of the building, or just 1 square foot, that automatically takes you out of this program?
Well, I mean, so no, there's no specifics. Come on, there's no specifics on anything.
Of course not. Why should we think otherwise?
Yeah. So I think it's more, if you're renting out, if you're using a building and you're renting out 1% of your space to someone else, I wouldn't necessarily look at your business as being a landlord passive income, So I think it would definitely be in almost the 75, 50 or more percent for it to even be, I think you had to look at your tax return also. Are you filing taxes as a passive income or not? Like, there's a lot of different variables that determine this. They're outside of what this bill is. But for
there's no guidance either way.
There's no guidance on an exact percentage. There's no guidance on an exact percentage. Apartment buildings, mobile home parks, not eligible. Residential facilities that do not provide healthcare and/or medical services are not eligible. That's a lot
yeah.
of, so I suspect that some of our larger brokers or agents, might be in the passive income game or the property game also. So it's something to look at, that you may not be eligible for, your rental property that you look at as a business, but it's not being looked at as a business here. But your income as an agent or a broker is being looked at. So you can apply for one and maybe not the other. So we're definitely going to be keeping up on that. I have a feeling something will happen, maybe not in this week, but the government's bailing a lot of industries out. They have to look at this. So
if you don't mind me asking, can you go back to the first part of this where you were reading, I honed in on a word, use.
Mm-hmm.
Can you read that over again? Because the lawyer in me is there a definition for what use is?
I don't even know which.
I should have jumped in when because you had said something about at the very beginning that when you started talking about the passive income, you read a definition or read something that said end use. And I was just like, I was honing in on that word use.
I don't know. I can't find that right now.
Well, when you're researching, look at that word use could be twisted in a way, or the proper spin could be put on it to take somebody out of the passive income.
Right.
And so that's what I was thinking. And so when you're doing the research, I think that word use is going to be is going to be a key component to that. And so there's going to need to be a definition or some guidance on what does use mean. Right.
So we will keep everybody posted, but definitely wanted to get this information out there because I know it's relevant to folks in the group. So awesome. That is what I have.
Awesome stuff, Vicki. So just to remind everybody, along with our normal postings every day and almost every hour, it seems like, on Thursday, we're going to have Laura Bianchini from Moody Insurance, who's going to talk about the insurance aspect of this crisis, business continuity, and some other things that on the insurance side. So tune in at 12:30. We'll send a reminder out. but Laura will be on with us on Thursday at 12:30. So thank you, everyone. Stay healthy.
Great.
Keep your social distance. And we look forward to talking with you again on Thursday.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.